Hey everybody. Well, this season just keeps getting better and better, doesn't it? This is what this show should be about. Although I have to tell you, as great as this episode was, I'm having a little difficulty coming up with things to talk about. This is one of those episodes where a lot of things happened, but nothing really happened. There was a bunch of content, but it was all one thing, the infection in the prison. Which was just this extravagantly long moment of intensity. I could barely breathe as I watched it. Just wondering, is Herschel going to make it? Is a walker going to pounce on him? Is he going to die? Is Sasha going to turn? Is Glenn going to turn? He looked so goddamn close, but apparently he's going to be okay. And then even with the three of them being okay, you got the chance of the infection spreading even greater, because now Maggie not only came in, but broke in, so there's airflow to the outside, if and that's how it works. And despite that Daryl's group came back with medicine, it's still not exactly a cure. They can help the symptoms and all that, which is, as Herschel said, what kills everybody. It's not the infection itself, it's the symptoms. But it still doesn't mean the infection is cured. It's still a threat, despite that the medicine is now there. This was a tough episode for Herschel this week. He not only had to kill his first walker since the barn burning, but it wasn't even just a walker. He had to kill friends and people he's been living with just after they've turned. That's a much different animal than killing walkers out in the field or who are attacking your home. And though we did get to finally see him kick ass again, as we know he can, I think that if Glenn hadn't made it, and I do say made it with quotation marks, you can't see them because it's an audio, but if you could see my hands, you'd see the quotation marks, because for now we don't know for sure if Glenn is going to make it or not. But if he hadn't, then I think Herschel would have been completely broken. We already saw him attempt to read his Bible as he closes Caleb's eye, and he can't even do it. He's so emotionally broken that he just begins to cry and sob. And if Glenn had died, I think he might be a different person at this point in time. With Maggie, we got to see her prove herself as her father's daughter. Now, that wasn't quite necessary. We all know what kind of character she is already, but we got to see her enter the prison despite the risk of infection to help out, which is exactly what Herschel did, so she knew she had to as well. And on top of that, even after she saw Glenn being sick, she still stuck to business. She knew it had to be done, and though she was a little emotional, she kept to the business of trying to get everyone help. Now, as I said, this episode is going to be sort of short, so we only have a couple more topics to cover, but it starts with Rick and Carl teaming up against the Walker Horde with their assault rifles. It was a great moment because we know that Carl is extremely capable, and Rick knows it too. He went to Carl on purpose. Now, he didn't have anyone else there to really ask for help, but he still went to Carl. If he didn't think Carl was capable, he wouldn't have gone and asked him. What I really like about that moment personally is it's Rick doing what has to be done. We haven't really seen that from him. We've seen him getting to that point, but this episode finally had him doing what had to be done. Grab a couple of assault rifles and mow them down. Kill hundreds of walkers, because that's what needs to be done. And of course, at the same time, we can see that this is breaking Rick a little. It's obvious by the facial expressions that he's giving, as him and Carl are killing, and Carl is almost performing better than him. But of course, that also wasn't really a permanent solution. Killing all of them is a good temporary solution. If there's no walkers that are coming through the fence, then there's no walkers to worry about coming through the fence. But the fence is open. They're going to have to do something, and building another fence really isn't going to cut it. Now, this tangent might seem strange to some of you, but in The Talking Dead, they had the Mythbusters guy saying that he would dig a bunch of trenches around the prison to stop the walkers from getting to the fence. And at the same time, my wife was saying that they have those, I don't know what they're called, but the wood barricade fences, the poles that are shaved into spikes, the kind of things that humans have been building for thousands of years outside around castles. Well, anyway, she was saying that they should just build a bunch of those and put them all the way around the fence. And I had the same idea. It's a pretty good idea, especially because the walkers, even if they started to build up on it, you could have people go around and kill them and pull them off. But here's the thing with both of those ideas. Just as we saw with the fence, a fence that should have held the walkers off, it was built strong enough to hold prisoners in, the worst humanity has to offer, and yet it still gave way to the walkers. And that's because outside of total extermination, you can't stop the walker threat. Thousands and thousands of them are going to come. As long as there are people there for them to feed on, they're going to come and take down whatever defense you have. If you have a trench, they're just going to keep falling and piling into it until they can walk right over. And if you have those wood barricades, they're just going to stab themselves onto it until it's a soft, mushy area for them to climb over. There is no defense that can hold them back. There is no safe place, not the prison, not Woodbury, nowhere. I just want that to be clear. I don't want to extend this episode artificially, but I did think of one other thing having to do with Carol that I wanted to bring up before I talk about the very end and very beginning of this week's episode. If you think about it, Rick really did make the right decision exiling her. She said that she killed Karen and David because it was the right thing to do. They were going to get sick, or they already were sick, they were going to die, the infection was going to spread, so they had to be killed and burned. And there's nothing stopping her from applying that logic to anyone else. What if Carl and Judith had been the first ones sick? Would she have stabbed them in the back of the head and brought them outside to burn them? I bet she would have, and I bet Rick sort of knows that deep down. So I definitely think he made the right decision. I just wanted to go on record with that. Alright, now the end of the episode, we saw that the governor has finally returned. I say finally, it's only been 6 episodes, but you get what I mean. I'm not really sure what to say about it. I'm glad he's returned. He's an antagonist that I enjoy. Again, a reminder, it's Woodbury I didn't like. The governor's fine by me. And now that we know he's outside the prison, we have to again wonder who is feeding the rats to the walkers in the first place. There is the option of Lizzie, but I just don't know if that holds true. I'm going to go back to it being Bob or whoever is the spy for the governor. And by the way, I'm not saying I buy that whole Bob spy thing. I think Bob has a much bigger role to play. I have no idea what, but I don't think it's as simple as being a governor tool. And then there's also the question of what the governor could be possibly planning. There's the obvious answer of him waiting and biding his time, looking for that exact right opening to come in and cause havoc and kill maybe everybody. But that just doesn't feel AMC enough. I'm sure he's going to have much more up his sleeve. What, I don't know, but I'm glad he's finally back. And now the very beginning of the episode, and 2 different things that happened. The first one I want to bring up is that we saw the one walker almost dead on the side of the road, and we saw dogs running up and licking him and then running away. Now, I don't know if they were supposed to be purposefully licking him, but that's the way I saw it. I'm going to run with that. And I'm also going to guess that that walker is not their first undead encounter. I'm going to believe that these wild dogs have come across walkers before, whether to run away from them or possibly eat them. And I think that this is finally proof that all animals have the infection, the zombie virus. We already know that the entirety of humanity apparently has it, because we've seen no exclusions from that law, and that also means there's nothing saying that it doesn't apply to all animals. It's very likely that all animals have it. Maybe all mammals, all forms of life, who knows? And while I don't think that was the show's intent by showing that, I'm going to believe for now that that was proof that it's true, that all creatures have the virus. The dogs ran up and licked the walker and aren't infected. And of course they're not infected because you can only become a zombie if you die or are bit. Licking the walker isn't the same as being bit, and licking has no effect because they already have the virus, just like all the humans. But enough about that. On to our last thing, something more tangible, that being Rick's anger. When he was driving at the very beginning and they were showing the sunlight flashing on the watch and his eyes focusing, that anger was building in him like crazy. And I feel like that's the real display of who Rick is, now. Or maybe always. I'm not sure. But he's angry over what Carol has done. Not just the fact that she killed people, but the situation she put him in. Showing him that he can't keep Carl safe. Showing him that this world is hell. It was showing him that there is just no escape from the kinds of lessons that Shane and the governor tried to teach. And it's making him so unbearably angry, and I can't wait to see how it erupts. Last time he went on an insane axe-wielding rampage and talked to a bunch of made-up voices on the phone, and saw Lori almost everywhere he went. This time, while these sources of anger aren't as palpable for Rick, they aren't his best friend's betrayal or his wife's death, there are more of them. He's got Glenn being sick, Carol being a maniac, Herschel and Maggie being in the quarantine zone, Tyrese's behavior, Daryl's reaction, the governor at the wall, Walker's breaking in, dealing with Carl's well-being. There's just so much coming at him, and if he doesn't hold it together, it's going to be the craziest thing we've ever seen. Maybe.